Picture this. You're on the toilet. You've finished. You reach for the roll and disaster. The cardboard tube is empty. Panic sets in. Now imagine that panic lasting your entire life. For millennia, humanity had to get painfully creative to answer one simple question. What do you wipe with? Let's begin our journey in the Roman Empire. We often think of the Romans as the kings of hygiene with their thermal baths and aqueducts. But on the toilet, it was a different story. In the public latrines where people did their business sitting side by side, chatting about their affairs, there was no paper. Oh, immortal gods, how these latrines stink. Quiet, Marcus. If the latrines cease to stink, Rome itself will cease to live. There was the xylospongium, a sea sponge attached to the end of a stick. The problem wasn't the sponge itself, it was that it was communal. You'd use it, give it a quick rinse in a bucket of salt water or vinegar, and leave it for the next person. It was a veritable petri dish of bacteria. The Greeks had a more radical method. They used Pessoi, shards of pottery or smooth pebbles. They would scrape themselves with ceramic or stone. There's even an old Greek proverb that says, 3 stones are enough for a wipe. It was rough, it caused terrible irritation and sometimes chronic hemorrhoids. Some Greeks even carved the names of their enemies onto the shards before using them. A very personal form of revenge. Let's jump ahead to the Middle Ages. The Roman Empire had fallen, and so had the sponge. For 90% of the population, the peasants, wiping was a matter of opportunity. You used whatever was at hand. In the summer, a handful of grass, soft moss, or leaves. In winter, straw or hay. It was scratchy, but it got the job done. But you had to be careful which plants you chose. Grabbing the wrong leaf in the dark could turn your day into an allergic nightmare. If you lived near the sea, you weren't spared either. Archaeological digs show that people often used mussel shells to scrape. Just thinking about it makes you wince. In castles, the latrines were just simple holes that overhung the moats. People rarely wiped, or if they did, it was with scraps of old cloth called torchons. And guess what? They weren't washed very often. So what about the kings? Did Louis XIV wipe with straw? No, the elite had their privileges. Nobles used linen, lamb's wool, or soft hemp. These were cut pieces of fabric, which were washable and reusable. At the English court, there was even a totally mind-blowing official job, the groom of the stool, the valet of the chair. He was a very high-ranking nobleman whose mission was to assist the king on the toilet, and specifically to wipe him. As crazy as it may sound, it was a position of immense power. To be the one who cleaned the king's bottom was to be the closest to his secrets. The king has made his decision. We must act before tomorrow's council, or all is lost. But don't be fooled by appearances. At Versailles, behind the luxury, hygiene was catastrophic. The corridors often served as urinals, and the wiping cloth didn't stop the pestilential odors from reigning in the castle. So, when does the suffering end? The arrival of toilet paper as we know it is actually very recent. In the United States in the 19th century, the star of the toilet was the dried corn cob. It was free, available on all farms, and its rich texture was considered perfect for cleaning. When newspaper arrived, it gradually replaced the corn. The most famous example is the Farmer's Almanac. This book was so widely used in the toilet that its publishers eventually started pre-drilling a hole in it, so it could be hung directly in the outhouse at the back of the garden. Real commercial toilet paper didn't arrive until 1857, invented by Joseph Gaiety. But it was a luxury medical product infused with aloe. Nobody wanted it. People said, "Why pay for paper when I have free newspapers?" It wasn't until the 20th century that the roll became the norm. And a little fun fact, Until the 1930s, toilet paper had a major flaw. It often contained tiny wood splinters. Ouch. Today, when you unroll your triple-ply scented paper that's as soft as a cloud, spare a thought for your ancestors. Think of the Roman sponge full of germs, the rough corn cob, or even the Greek pottery shards. The history of hygiene is the story of our invisible comfort. It took us millennia to make this simple act painless. If you enjoyed this dive into the intimacy of the past, subscribe for more incredible stories about life back then.